I tell you what, it's good to have our next guest on the show too. Take yourself back to the 60s. You might think, those of you who aren't old enough to remember this original show, might think that Tony Barber has been a great quizmaster only through Sale of the Century. Back in the 60s and I think into the early 70s, he and Barbie Rogers had a magnificent program called The Great Temptation. Here's a real memory tickler for you.
Congratulations, 2 runners-ups, Barbie.
Tony Nancy Godworth from Barber Street in Mayfield, Newcastle, and Mrs. Russell from Box 180, Belmont.
Yes, indeed. Lovely to see her. Again on television, you'll see her live in just a few moments' time. Let me just mention to you, apart from being a great hostess on television and also one of the earliest stars of that ilk, Barbie has had quite an interesting life. In some ways, very early in the piece, a very frustrating life. But she can tell the story. As I introduce her to you again, please welcome back to the 7 Network, Barbie Rogers. Your heart good? Hear those wolf whistles from the audience there?
I know, it's wonderful. Could you keep it up? Could we put it on tape so I can take it home and listen to it all the time?
You look wonderful.
What about those shots, the last shots? My legs are wider than that. My shoulders were in those days.
What era was that, though?
Temptation went from 1967 to 74. And, of course, it was on... Temptation was on for an hour in the daytime and then half an hour Great Temptation in the night time. So it was virtually an hour and a half to air right around Australia.
And back in those years, everyone talked about what Tony and Barb said on the show.
Well, I think we were the new generation, the new look, you know, from your pick-a-box people and your Princess Panda that you had down here.
Sure.
All of a sudden came this lady with long blonde hair and long legs who used to wear, you know, the skirts right up around, you know where.
Yes.
I mean, it was a wonder I wasn't running for indecent exposure. I looked at a photograph the other night and I was sitting on a chair and it was right up there. The dress.
I remember watching the show and seeing the sort of gear that you used to wear, and for its time, it really was quite devilish. I mean, it was only on occasions you looked across and had a look at Tony, because, you know, I mean, you were there and there's a lot of Barbie Rogers to see.
I can remember going to America in the early 70s to do a screen test for Columbia Films, and at that time I was wearing hot pants and long over-the-knee boots and socks. Well, the Americans had never seen anything like it. They followed me around for days.
Tell us about the screen test.
I did a screen test for Columbia Films in 1972. I was sent over there. I ended up with a show called Password. They wanted me to do a show called Password. But I was never very ambitious, and I figured I had 2 young children at home and a very good career in Australia. So I figured...
You took it no further?
No.
You talk about the 2 young children being at home, apart from the fact that it's great to see you back on television. The thing that always sticks in my mind is a conversation we had many years ago at a Jimmy Hannon show called Celebrity Squares at TCN 9 in Sydney. And you told me in the dressing room one day, told Paddy and myself one day, that you were adopted, and you said you were looking for your real mum.
Yes.
And the way in which you told the story was fascinating, particularly considering that the whole of Australia knew Barbara Rogers in The Great Temptation, but no one up until that stage had known that you were adopted, and indeed, as you said, there was every chance that your real mum used to watch you on television.
Well,
Take the story from there, Barb.
Well, I didn't know myself. In 1973, I was 31 and had no idea. I was in a family of 3 older brothers and a sister that was 2 years younger than me. And my adopted mum had died just before Temptation started. And my father had remarried again, and the lady that he married figured that I should know after all this time.
They're adoptive parents we're looking at now, aren't they, on the screen?
Yes, that's my mum and dad on my 21st birthday.
And they're both now passed on?
Yes, they have. And it was interesting because my birthday I always thought was the 8th of August, and people used to say, you're a Leo, but, you know, you don't show the signs of being a Leo because you're not forceful enough. Well, I didn't find out until about 1978, when I wrote to Youth and Community Services, that I was actually born on the 8th of July, but my adopted parents took my birthday from the day they brought me home, which was the 8th of August. In those days, the girls were allowed to keep their babies up to 4 weeks, and that time make a decision whether they want to keep them or give them up for adoption.
But Barbie, how did you find out you were adopted?
Well, the lady my dad married, his second wife, decided that I should know after all this time. And it was a tremendous shock. As a matter of fact, I had a nervous breakdown because of it, because I couldn't handle the fact of not belonging to a family I was so sure that I did belong to.
So what did you do?
Well, I joined an organisation called, I think it's called Adoption Triangle now, and tried to find my natural mother. And I had no sort of hint at all. All I knew was that I came from St Margaret's Hospital, and that I was born on the 8th of August, I thought, in those days, 1942.
Yeah. Interesting thing, if we just see the photograph of you as a little girl, I'm not too sure whether we've seen it yet or not, and someone was saying before the show that your real mother called you Shirley.
Yes. When I talk to her now, when she had the baby, she named me Shirley after Shirley Temple because she thought Shirley Temple was just so wonderful. Then my adopted parents, when they took me home, they had no idea of who had me. You know, all they knew that I was born, you know, to an unmarried mother, and they had the opportunity of adopting me and bringing me up. But my mother, I learnt dancing 6 days a week, and on the 7th day, I would go and entertain at different homes and orphanages and that sort of thing. And I could never understand. She always made me, on the Sunday, sit with the children in orphanages. And when I'd come home in the afternoon, she'd say to me, well, what did you get from that? Did you learn anything from those children? And all I could say was, they don't have mothers and fathers. But all along the line, she was trying to tell me, but she couldn't bring herself to
Was she a good woman?
Very, very strong Roman Catholic lady who made a pact with her husband that she would wear padding so that nobody would know that I wasn't her child. So that the 3 elder boys, her first husband had died, and she was told she couldn't have any more children, so they adopted me, but 2 years later she had a daughter of her own. So I was very secure in that family with 3 elder brothers looking after me and protecting me. And it never even occurred to me, I would say, who am I like? And I think, oh, well, I'm tall like my dad. But it was only as I went on. I can remember when I was having my first daughter, and I was told I had Rh negative blood, that I could have a blue baby. And I went home to her and I was so upset, and I said, well, why didn't you tell me that? And that day I remember she tried so hard to tell me, but she couldn't. She'd kept the secret for so long.
Yeah. And she wouldn't have known your blood type?
No, no.
Take us up now, Barbie, to the time of meeting your real mum.
Well, I met my real mother in 1969, about the 31st of July 79, I should say. And what had happened was she'd come out from Scotland. She was a Scottish girl, 23. And, of course, there was no government aid for unmarried mothers in those days during the war. So she had no other choice but to give her baby up for adoption. And, of course, she went to a Catholic hospital where you virtually signed your baby over weeks before it was born if you weren't married and couldn't afford to keep it. So that she never ever married until she was about 40, and then the man she married was a very sick man, and he died about 10 years later. So she'd virtually lived alone all her life, never had any other children. I was the only child.
Did she watch you on television?
Well, that was interesting, because the day I met her, I walked up the garden path and she was there with 2 nephews. I was howling, my ex-husband was crying, the nephews were crying, and she stood there and showed absolutely no emotion whatsoever. And we were having a cup of tea, and she said, to think I used to watch Temptation, I thought what a lovely looking girl you were. And I said, well, I guess I have you to thank for that. And then I looked around and the tears were running down her face. The thing was that she'd lived alone all her life, she'd kept a secret, and she didn't know how to show emotion.
Do you see much of her now, Barbie?
Yes, all the time. Yes,
Do you call her mum?
No, I can't call her mum. I call her Bunty, which is her nickname.
Do you see her as your mother?
No, not really. My mother is definitely the parents, my mother and dad are definitely the parents that brought me up. And she is a nice, like a maiden aunt or a very good friend. I mean, she just absolutely adores me and buys things for me all the time, I think trying to make up for what she didn't give me as a youngster. But when I go around and talk to people about adoption, I usually find that people in the audience get very upset. You always find 1 or 2 that become very upset. And when you talk to them afterwards, you usually find that these are the people that do have adopted children, and they're frightened that that child will look for their natural mother, and of course they'll lose that love. Well,
Should they look for their natural mother?
I don't know, I sway either way.
Are you pleased you didn't found her?
Yes.
Not just because she's a good person, but would you go through that trauma again?
Well, it's terrifying what you could find, and emotionally it's terribly draining on you. I don't know that I'd have the courage to go through with it again, but I mean, I found a nice lady who made one mistake in her life. Thank goodness she did, otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here.
You're a lovely mistake. Barbie, stay with us, please.
Yes.
Clayton Barber is going to join us after this break. He's a psychologist from America who's been on the show the last couple of days, and he's making his third appearance this week, and hopefully he's going to be given some time this particular
Right.
appearance. Although, of course, what you've been talking about, I'd be very interested to hear what Clayton had to say
Yes, it
about
would
your
be.
experience.
Yes.
We're back with you after this break.